Hola amigos, welcome to Latinos in Michigan, USA. I'm your host Liliana Ospina Herstred, and today I have a very special guest, a person that I know for a decade, Ruby Robinson from Michigan Immigrant Center. He's an attorney, and we're gonna talk about the bond update. Something happened a few weeks ago. Ruby had was talking in the state about changes in the bond. So I'm not a lawyer, but I know this is important, and I want you, Ruby, to explain the community the importance of this discussion you have statewide a few weeks ago.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you,
So,
Ruby.
on May 11th, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit, in a major ruling, affirmed that detained immigrants from Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, and Kentucky have a constitutional right to pursue bond in immigration court without having to also and previously file a petition for habeas corpus. This had been the way that immigration law had operated for decades until last year when the government tried to reinterpret how immigration law works. And so, what this means is that people who are detained enter the United States without inspection, do not have a final order of removal, and do not have certain disqualifying criminal history can, without more, request a bond hearing in immigration court. And so it applies to people who are in civil deportation proceedings, civil removal proceedings. We have a lot of information on our website, which I will link to you. It's both in English and Spanish. People have the right to do this with an attorney, but not at government expense. The government does not pay for attorneys for people who are in removal proceedings. They can do it either with an attorney if they want, or it's not required. They can do it pro se. They can represent themselves. Oftentimes, having an attorney is a good thing because they know the law, they know the process, but we are also seeing some people be successful on their own. But again, this ruling affirms who is eligible to at least apply for bond in immigration court without having to pursue a separate writ of habeas corpus in federal court. People who are not in this posture, people who have removal orders, people who entered maybe with CBP1 or as some type of parole, people with certain types of criminal history, it behooves them to talk with an attorney before they try to apply for bond or pursue habeas, just so they understand their rights. But this really opens up the possibility that many more people could be released. And then there's going to be, once a person does submit their bond request, then the judge is going to look at that request and look at a number of factors to see if it should be granted and for how much.
Can you explain, because a lot of our followers don't know a lot of legalities on
Yeah,
legal terms.
yeah, for
What
sure.
is habeas corpus?
Yeah, of course. Forgive me. So, habeas corpus is one of the oldest aspects of our legal system. It is a petition that you can file in a court asking to be released, that the government is holding you illegally.
Mhm.
And so, um, the underlying basis for this major ruling comes out of habeas corpus, basically that the government illegally detained these individuals. And the court, the Sixth Circuit, vindicated that. They said, no, you can go through the bond process like you previously would have been eligible for. Uh, but habeas corpus essentially is a vehicle, it's a tool if a person believes that they are detained unlawfully to request that a court review that.
How does that work?
Yeah, so I want to separate two things. I want to separate
Yeah.
habeas corpus from bond because
Okay.
they're separate
Yeah,
proceedings.
I
They
mixed it
happen
up.
in,
I'm sorry.
in separate courts. So a petition for habeas corpus is filed in the immigration context in
Okay.
federal court.
Okay.
And it's filed in either the Eastern District of Michigan, if somebody is, detained in the Monroe County inmate dormitory or the St. Clair County inmate dormitory, Or in the Western District of Michigan, in a court like in Grand Rapids, for example, if the person is detained at the North Lake Processing Center, the Calhoun County Correctional Facility, or the Sault Ste. Marie, the jail in Chippewa County, right? And so each court has a jurisdiction of the area of the state that it covers. And so that petition for habeas corpus can be filed in the federal court, either by the individual themselves, by an attorney, or technically somebody known as a next friend who doesn't have to be an attorney. But again, filing anything in court, does carry risks, and it also carries a person proceeding on their own is under the same obligations of knowledge and pursuing things in English that an attorney or an experienced professional has. And so, again, the goal for when people do file these petitions for habeas corpus is either to be released or if not, we're seeing many of the judges in federal court ordering that individuals have a bond hearing in immigration court. And so that's where, the importance of bond really comes in, because now, again, people who entered without inspection, regardless of how long they've been here in the United States, don't have a final removal order and don't have certain types of disqualifying criminal history, they can pursue bond without having to go at all to federal court. Mm-hmm. And so when a judge is looking at bond, to release a person on bond or not, they're going to look at, is this person a danger to the community? Is this person, do they have strong ties to the community? How long have they lived here? Do they pay their taxes? Have they filed other immigration applications? Right? What are their connections? Do they have a sponsor? Someone who can essentially confirm and agree to show support for them, be able to get them to and from court if they need assistance. And then connected to all this is, what type of relief does that individual have in immigration court? Do they qualify for asylum? Have they applied for asylum? Do they have a separate application? Because a judge is unlikely to grant bond for a person who's not going to return. Now, the whole purpose of bond is to show up at your immigration court. It's an incentive to show up at your court hearing in the future, because if not, you or your sponsor is going to lose a lot of money. Mm. And so when a person does request bond, usually people have one opportunity to request bond. And two, when they request it, it is best to include all of the supporting documentation and information. Because if a person just requests it and say, I want bond, the judge and courts in general, they need evidence. They need letters, they need tax returns, they need lease agreements, they need work stubs, they need a document showing no criminal history, they need all of these types of things to support those elements, the arguments. Not a danger, likely to return, strong community connections. And the more of that, the better. And again, we have information on our website about how to prepare a bond request and what types of information to include. Again, because people generally just have one opportunity, and if it's denied, then they're probably stuck unless the circumstances dramatically change.
Wow. See, I learned something. I always learn from you guys, because it's complicated and the community is so scared. And if it wasn't for like people like you, organizations like you guys, they will be like lost, because there are lawyers that are helping, but there are some others that are taking advantage of some people, and it's a very, very complicated situation right now. Yeah. For many people. I have friends that are doing raffles and trying to get them money to pay for that bond, and then to pay for the lawyer fees. So it's complicated. Yeah, and many people like I saw a case, like it was yesterday, about a gentleman in Montana. His name is Roberto Lascano, and he was like ICE detained here, and he was, locked away for a few days, but the whole community moved resources and got him out. And the lawyers figured out that the first time that he was deported, the government didn't follow the due process in his case. And that happens to many people, but because they don't have the resources or organizations like yours with the information, they just get lost and, they're part of the numbers, the statistics. Thank you so much for that. Ruby, what will be the message for the community right now? What's the best advice that you can give them as an attorney?
So again, I think this is something we've been saying, for years. There is no magic word. There's nothing that prevents immigration enforcement from happening, but preparedness is key. Understanding, what your rights are in interactions with law enforcement, making a plan about what will happen to you or your family members in the event of an emergency or the event of an enforcement action. And so if or when it does happen, you know exactly what to do. You know who to call. Do I actually have a case for a bond? Do I not have a case for a bond? Right? That way, you or your family members aren't scrambling and trying to pay thousands of dollars when there may not be anything there. Right? So again, advanced planning is really helpful. I know it's hard, and finding the time to have a consultation with an attorney may be difficult for many folks. But again, to the extent that people can do some of this planning in advance, in the event, and if they have an attorney, maybe they're not detained now, it would be an important thing for them to say, what will happen if I get detained? Do I qualify for bond? Are you going to represent me for bond? Will it cost more money? Right? So depending on where someone is, right, they can ask all of these important questions of their attorney if they have one. If they don't have one, maybe they can have a consultation to understand what's likely to occur. Again, managing those expectations up front, I think, puts people, even if it's not a great situation, at least money won't be wasted. People aren't scrambling. And as you mentioned a few moments ago, hopefully there's no one who's going to take advantage of vulnerable individuals, at these, the most difficult times in their lives. And so everything that I've shared today, people can certainly do on their own in terms of applying for bond. There's no requirement that people have an attorney or an accredited representative. It often just makes it easier because they are often familiar with these areas of the law. They practice this every day. And so, again, it's up to that individual and their family and the resources that they have to determine, what makes sense, what plan of action they want to pursue. But again, we're enthusiastic about this ruling because it allows more people to be released from detention, and so that's where things are. As we have additional updates, new information, new materials, new resources, please check in with us, follow us on social media, and we'll be here fighting alongside.
Thank you, Ruby. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.